What up, Pittsburgh Steelers fans? Matty P here with another episode of Steelers Touchdown Under. We are doing it live. We've already got people in the comments. We've got Jed, we've got Steeler Nation Australia, Marky D. How are you doing on this Friday afternoon? Well, that's Friday afternoon, Friday evening in America. But in Australia, it's Saturday morning. It's the weekend. I'm already feeling those weekend vibes. We've got the Steelers hoodie going. It's freezing cold. It's getting crappier weather. It's going to rain. Apparently, 90% of the show is going to get lashed with rain. Anyway, the Steelers are doing OTAs. We continue now. I think we're now through OTA day 6, 7. So let's just show us what's the deal. Man, you love that headline that we did for the first episode of this weekend's Steelers Global Perspective. That's a good video. What's the go with Steelers O-line? We're going to be talking about O-line. We'll talk about roster moves. We'll talk about some of the things I'm hearing around OTAs and more on today's show. We'll have Steelers Q&A as well. May even spin a bloody wheel if that's what we want to do. I'm leaving it open, but obviously Q&A is where it's at because this is a live show with you guys, Steeler Nation. Well, Steeler Nation Australia's in the comments, but with Steelers Touchdown Under and our community. Fuzzy Monkey, what's going on? Mate, how is it week 3 or 4 of you being a grandfather? Maybe you told us a couple of weeks late, but you let me know. Yeah, hope everything is going well there with your little Steeler fan out there. So, as I said, it's been an interesting week with Steelers OTAs. We'll have a lot of coverage of that on the Steelers Global Perspective content that I do with Shannon White coming out over the weekend. One of those is already out. Push day, mate. I like it. I very much like it. I didn't separate push and pull, but I did arms, shoulders, back on Thursday. So that was a good session. It was a really good session. So Steelers OTAs obviously going well. Hearing a lot about the quarterbacks and the leadership they're showing. They took the O-line out for dinner. They made a cheap joke about that. Missy Matthews and Mike Prasuta on Steelers.com. That's funny about cars and dinner being worth more than every car that Mike Prasuta ever bought. That was actually, it cracked me up a little bit. The other things I've heard are, Peyton Wilson was sort of saying he's kind of over playing football in shorts, just wants to get the pads on, wants to hit people. I really like that. I've got an interesting take on that I might say through. Well, no, I just want to say I think it's interesting with Patrick Wilson thinking that way because everyone keeps talking about his injury history. Everyone that interviewed him. Oh, how's the injury history? Oh, your knee. You thought he quit football. Like we're kind of all over that. We just want to see the bloke play football. He's incredibly athletic. He brings the old school Steeler mentality. So it's written in a sentence. I really liked it. Old school Steeler mentality with modern athleticism, and I love that idea. But that being said, while I think he's going to be a beast on the field, I can imagine that backs on backers drill is actually not something that he's going to love or be very good at very quickly. So my sort of caution out there is that I think we're going to see some overreactions on if he doesn't do well on backers and backers drill, backs on backers. I think we're going to see a massive overreaction to that on, we see a massive reaction on everything on social media, but I think we'll see people go, oh, is he really that good? Is this the guy? We should just stick with Landon Roberts. I do think that because if you look at his length and the run up when he goes to make a tackle, he might find that leveraging against some of those shorter backs in that close distance at which they do the backs on backers drill could be a problem. But that's just my early call out because I could see a whole storm in a teacup going on over that. And there are a lot of storms in the teacups that happen. Fuzzy Monkey says, thanks, all is well. Time for, you know what? I had one last night. I had to work late and I cracked one open as I was finishing some things off. And it was just beautiful. I only end up having one. But it was just really nice. I haven't had a beer in a while. Going out for Mexican food tonight, though. So going out for some Mexican cocktails are good. Krakatini, that's it, mate. Krakatini. George says, hey, all. Welcome, George. Anyway, so that's an interesting thing that I thought about Peyton Wilson. You're starting to hear a lot more about Dante Jackson as well, which I think is a really, really good thing. Because I was really high on Dante Jackson coming to the Steelers. Got about 14 interceptions in his career from LSU, super quick. I saw a really dumb article a couple of weeks back around him being a slot, not the Steelers not playing Dante Jackson in the slot. And I was kind of like, well, that's kind of funny because he's not a slot player. You want him on the outside, I need to do a bit more film tape into how he's gone on press the last couple of years. But his last 2 years at Carolina, they've done some weird stuff in their defense. They got J.C. Horn, who I really like as well. I'm a massive J.C. Horn fan over from the Carolina Panthers. If you paired him next to, well, I actually do. I paired him next to Joe Porter Jr. and Matty, and it's a good time, let me tell you. But that's kind of interesting as well to see Dante Jackson starting to take more of a prominence in terms of the Steelers defense. People started to know what he's going to be. As I came on, I was just doing some couple of quick reads on 2 other things that I wanted to check up on based on today's OTAs. And I heard about Warren's about to get fined for leading. Well, yeah, mate, like just put Wilson on his back. Well, it's interesting. We're going to talk about linebackers. That's one of the shows that will come out for Steelers Global Perspective this week. Shannon and I did have a whole show on linebackers. We had a whole show on quarterbacks. And we had a whole show effectively on Connor Haywood as well on the tight ends, which was another thing this week. We saw the signing of Isaiah Gavings out of, wow, I'm gonna mix, it's something state. But he was a former wide receiver. He's more of a wide receiver turned tight end bloke, really fast guy. Joined the tight end group. I think they've now got 6. We're going to look at the roster later on in the show, but I think they've now got 6, 7 tight ends on the team. That's really important to back up Pat Freiermuth. That's really important in the Arthur Smith offense. Kyle Pitts had 1,000 years in his rookie year, but he does play a bit more like a wide receiver in a tight end's body. And last year as well, I think it was Pruitt and Pitts combined for I think as they said, it was 1,200 yards, and they had over 50 receptions each. So definitely big from the tight ends. That is a trend you're going to see. So we do talk about that in the context of Connor Haywood. So that's coming out too. Hi, Jennifer. Welcome. Happy Friday. Kelly says, great content as always. Thank you. You're going to draft in Pittsburgh. Yep. I'm going to be at the game this year too, the Chargers game. So that's going to be awesome. It's probably when they're going to start Dan Moore at left tackle and piss me off. But for those that have caught that joke in the Steelers Global Perspective we put out, I don't know, what was it, 9-10 hours ago? I put it out last night about 10 o'clock my time. But yeah, that will rile me up, but we'll get there. Where was I? What was I? Oh, yeah, so tight ends was an interesting trend of this week. The other thing that I thought was kind of interesting as well is a bit about the offensive line. So Shannon and I did talk about that a lot. The Steelers are really looking at Nate Herbig there at center outside of Zach Frazier. I don't read too much into that, but I you can find out my thoughts. Like I get quite cranky about it. The concept of not starting rookies in that show that is out. I'll link it later on after this one. But look, I do think it is interesting with Nate Herbig. If the gap is big between where Frazier's at now and where he's at, which I can't think it is. I think it'll be the other way around, the gap to him to Frazier, then that's a problem. But we won't know any of that till training camp. But I still think Nate Herbig could be moved because Nate Herbig, if you move Nate Herbig, it's a $4 million roster saving. That could be really important because, yeah, that's what I was going to say. So before I got on, I saw a tweet as I was tweeting out the link to this show, actually. And Ray Fittipaldo reckons, right, when that latest bit of Steelers media hype, that the Steelers wide receiver 2 discussion is back up. And I know most of us out there on the channel just want to see the young guys play at this point. His theory is that we will see a Steeler trade happen, or certainly it have to be a trade, will probably require draft picks. And that the Steelers will acquire a wide receiver 2. And his tip is that it's going to be Deebo Samuel or Brandon Ayuk. Now, my thoughts on that are, one cough in, I'm still... My thoughts on that are, Brandon Ayuk wants, A.J. Brown type money. He's come out and said that. The Steelers don't have that money to pay, particularly when they don't have their quarterback rock solid sorted over the next few years, because we got the 1-year deals for Russ, got the 1-year deal for Justin Fields. You need to have money to play with. Deebo Samuel's contract is a lot easier to swallow. Also, if you look at the Arthur Smith offense, Deebo Samuel is probably a better fit for the Steelers offense. But you kind of want you before you make that move, you need to know that offense has properly been installed. So I actually agree with Ray that if something's going to happen between now and the season, it probably is going to happen at training camp when they've got a good evaluation of that. But what I disagree with is I just don't think the Steelers want to spend that money. And who knows who the heck else is going to be cut. So that's kind of an interesting one for me. And equally, I also feel a little bit uncomfortable with the move because we don't know who the quarterback is going to be. Now, some people say, well, we've got 2 starting quarterbacks. We're safer, make that move. We're going to be able to compete. But then there's the other side is like these 2 guys were the most sacked quarterbacks last year. They both were available for different reasons. I mean, I think a lot of the reason Russ is available is more Sean Payton than anything else. There's a lot of money to spend on wide receiver when there's other parts that we could be spending it on. And the Steelers didn't want to spend that money on cornerback, and that was the biggest gap. Even via a trade for like a Snead or someone like that. So, I'm not sold on that. I'm not going to be a hater if it happens. You just welcome the next guy in the black and gold and you move on. But it is kind of, it was an interesting thing for me to read. Part of me feels like it's just a bit of like, let's be relevant again by doing this outlandish take. But, that is what it is. We all can't change it to say we can only cheer on the black and the gold. Also, remember, anyone's joined in the show, I've seen like uptick. Just remember, you ask whatever questions you want. I really want this to be Q&A. That's why I want to do a live with y'all. So I wanted to give you, I'm just pulling it up. I want to give you a little bit of a look. I want to sort of talk through a few things that I saw with the Steelers roster as well, because I think there's some interesting things that I've sort of spotted when we were doing the show yesterday. We were doing the pre-records for all the Steelers Global Perspective content. I saw some interesting things as I was going through the roster. So I thought, let's go through the roster. And that might be a really fun way because there's so many changes that happen this time of year, and it's pretty hard to keep up, even when you've got like a Steeler channel. It can be pretty hard to keep up. The roster. Let's go here. You guys can still hear me. I've just got an internet warning. Steelers.com crashing the Steelers podcast. That's always really good. Let's go. Hopefully you guys will see it in a sec. I can see it. All right. So we will make that bigger. Man, that's really crashed. All right. So I'm not going to talk through everybody, but I'm just going to give some things that I noticed on this roster. Oh, well, I'll answer George's comment first. Assuming Frazier starts at center and Furtado starts at right tackle his first game, wouldn't that put a lot of pressure on Jordan? That's an interesting one. That is a very good point. And it's one that we saw last year in the play of Isaac Seumalo because of how poorly Mason Cole played and how poorly James Daniels played. This is an interesting one. Perhaps, and could be perhaps it. And George, I'm not sure whether you watched the Global Perspective content, but that was one of the things that I think is interesting. Is like, you got Frazier have a few games, and then you put Furtado in, and you use Furtado in kind of like a swing tackle, or eligible man on field kind of option. To the first few games to get them comfortable. But I kind of like James Daniels didn't. How to put this? James Daniels didn't have a good start to the season last year. If you actually go back, like if anyone goes back and looks at it, like it's not that he had a terrible game every game, but there are quarters or even a half. I think it was week 3 or 4. There was half. He was awful. He was one of the worst on that offensive line. He got better throughout the end of toward the end of the season, which was a real positive. But and closed out the season strongly. But to me, like, we obviously need the best O-line performing the best, through the season. So we don't want to destabilize that week 1. But if the gap, you've got to put the best 5 guys on the field. And that was my criticism last year with not having Broderick. He deserved to start the season. But it is a really interesting point, George. So I think, we'll have to call that the George take that we look at training camp and the offensive line, because That is true. But technically, Siamalo is battling a little bit as well because Siamalo is going to have Broderick playing on the left, where Broderick hasn't played since college. He played a full year last year pretty much. He played a little bit at left, but most of it was at right. So it is an interesting point, though. But I also think Frazier's a lot better player than Cole, a lot better player than Green, plug and play. So perhaps that actually takes a little bit of the pressure off James Daniels. But that's a really great point. I love that question. But yeah, we exactly, Jedevil. We just want to roll people.
We just want to roll people, man, to be honest with you guys. We got some backs that we like.
And that's it. It comes down to who are the backs that they like, that they have, that they want to run with. And I just think you need the road graders. Your bro Kendrick Green, the center and the fullback's body. All right, so that's an interesting part. We'll bring up the roster. So a couple of things I've noticed. So, obviously, cornerbacks kind of going well. We talked a lot about cornerbacks. I did put out a video this week on the slot corner position. I was talking a little bit about Josiah Scott and Beanie Bishop. Josiah Scott could be a really, really helpful player for the Steelers. So, that's a player that almost, it's like Ryan Watts. If you want to make the squad, you got to try and beat out Josiah Scott. Even though Ryan Watts, I think, is a lot more adaptable, a lot more of a weapon. The next bloke is Liao. Liao, I was just going through the roster last night, and I was thinking about some different things that have come into my head. I'd love a Liao redemption story, but you kind of feel like he could be a cut candidate here. Jedevil says, or like Pat P. I think Pat P could end up back as well. And if he was the third or fourth corner, that'd be pretty good. That'd be pretty good depth there, but just as a mentor for the guys. But Dante Jackson's he's a mad, awesome professional. And the cool thing about Dante Jackson is, Dante Jackson actually played with Patrick Queen at LSU. They were at college together. Patrick Queen, it was the early time for him in college. Logan Lee, I feel like I'm on the Logan Lee hype train. Logan Lee I still think he's going to be a gun player. And again, this is why I think Liao's going to have a problem because Logan Lee can do the inside stuff. And I see a lot of what he could do outside in certain sub packages. And even if you threw in the odd 4-3 schemes, and lineup as well. And because they're pretty much the same weight, but Logan Lee will need to pack on more and already looks like he has, to be honest, in OTAs. That's why I think Liao's going to have a problem here making the squad. I did think the same about Loudermilk. But Shannon thought we were talking a little bit about it off air yesterday. Shannon, a Steelers Global Perspective co-host for those out there that don't know him or listening back to this. He still thinks Loudermilk could possibly still make the squad. I don't know. I see him as potential cut candidate. This Jack Coletto out of Oregon State was an interesting bloke. Obviously, we're all on the Connor Hayward hype train. But I'm interested in watching him in training camp and how they use him. Don't be surprised for them to keep a fullback on that practice squad. There might be certain games where they want to go run heavy and they elevate that fullback, particularly if they're looking to do like different slash packages with Justin Fields as well, which we've already heard Russ talking about this week. Yeah, I think Pat P's lost a little bit of speed in the slot. So certain schemes that Pat P could be good in the slot for. I just think the veteran leadership, you get him mentoring Trice Rush again. I think Ryan Watts, and that be awesome. And that takes a little bit of pressure off Dante Jackson to have to do all of that. So that's why I like the idea of Pat P back. Yes. I think we all kind of want Fehoko to make the 53. I want Fehoko to make the 53. I also think with the defensive line makeup that they have, and he's the only nose tackle there, because if you go, man, Jetta, we're killing it today. But if you go into all the defensive tackles, Isaiah Loudermilk is a DT and a 3-4, but he's more of a defensive end, interior defense, but an interior defensive lineman, not someone that's rushing the C gap. And he's not a 5 technique, for example. But if you look at like Lowry is definitely like a Cam. He's a good backup for Cam Hayward and Ogunjobi. But the more you move him interior, that's not really his thing. So that's where I think Fehoko is actually going to be really crucial. And even if he's on the practice squad, I reckon they'll have to end up elevating him enough times that, that rule where they've been elevated 4 times, they've got to be given the spot. So that could be interesting. Mike should have said they are practicing as an all badge. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I'm actually like to pull. Again, this is why camp's going to be so interesting because we only get like OTA highlights. I tried to watch the OTA highlights video from week 2 this morning, and it was this fastest montage. I'm sitting there like with the little thing trying to like slow it down. It was really kind of frustrating actually. So very keen for training camp. As we go through it, another bloke. Probably going to do a video about him this week, if I can, on Kyron Johnson. Obviously, we talked about Jeremiah Moon 2 or 3 weeks ago. That was a good show that I did. That's what you mean, West Punch. Okay. I thought he was using it as a term for a type of stunt or scheme. Oh, yeah. Well, that's actually quite funny. Because, you got Loudermilk, Benton, Herbig, Watt. I'm leaving someone out. That's actually a really interesting point. Exactly. Loudermilk is much better at stopping the run. Loudermilk's problem though is like he'll put pressure on the quarterback and he'll end up near the guy and close to the quarterback, and the quarterback's like dropped way far back, and he just can never seem to get there. It's quite funny. Like he's always just seems like 2 or 3 steps off the pace. Like he's a good depth piece on most teams. I just think with Lowry, Bahoko, Benton, I like what they're doing. So Kyron Johnson's someone I want to look a bit more. He's a lot better player than people give him credit for. Played a bit with the Eagles. I actually think Mark Robinson is going to be hard pressed to make the 53 with Kyron Johnson there, and particularly if Holcomb's recovery is going pretty well. So he's an interesting guy to watch in training camp. So definitely keep your eye out for him through the next set of the OTAs and mandatory minicamp. I think as we go into the full training camp. I just wanted to talk about, this guy, Spence Anderson. Now, here's a guy. But Spence Anderson is I feel like he's been forgotten a little bit this year. I kind of like that, though. I want him to be forgotten. Not because he's playing poorly, but we would know at the moment if he was a problem. Shannon and I don't know whether we got there. We talk a lot, so I don't know whether we did this one on air or not, but we might have in the O-line video. Yeah, I think we did. I really would like to see at training camp. You've obviously got Dan Moore, Broderick on the left side at tackle. You've obviously got Fatano on the right. Broderick can go over there as well, and then you can slot Dan Moore if you have to in. Obviously, at left guard, you've got Siamalu as the understudy. If I think about like a play or something like that, I want the understudy to be on the left side, McCormick. Center, start Frazier, Herbig back there. Then you've got, which is why I think Herbig, because listen to all the guys I'm talking about here. There's too many alignment. Then you've got, not too many, but there's more than what they usually keep on the roster. Then you've got James Daniels, and backing up him, you would be Spence Anderson. Spencer Anderson, I watch heaps of tape on Spencer Anderson. His best place is right guard. Apparently at OTAs, one of the reporters have said that the team has sort of said they've asked him to focus on the interior offensive line. We thought he could be projecting to be a center in the NFL, and we haven't seen him doing a lot of those snap parts. So that's going to be interesting as well to see at training camp, because I'll tell you, if he's snapping the ball, they're not going to. McCormick looks good. They're not going to cut McCormick. He's a 4th round draft pick as well. This is why I actually think Nate Herbig could be on the bubble. I'll just go quickly before I talk about the next piece to the live chat. Jedable, he gets close. That's it, man. I tell you, when I did my TJ video this week, I just wanted to do a video on TJ. I felt like talking about TJ. And I'm in PFF, and even PFF's numbers, he's not at the top of most of PFF's numbers. You just sit there, you just start, your blood starts seething about the DPOY last year. Absolute bull crap. Good course teacher play Wisconsin. TJ was on vacation. Wasn't he in Austria? Someone said he was in Austria. I think Marky D said he was in Austria on vacation. Jedevil said Loudermilk next. You're on fire today. Nick Herbig. Yeah. That's it, JJ. You hit the nail on the head. We're trading Nate Herbig for Brandon Ayuk, and he's going to take the $2.8 million. Herbig's I remember this. He's a roster cap hit. He's a dead cap hit of 1.46. a saving of $4 million. So yeah, that's it. Like Nate Herbig's going to make, if he stays on the roster, $5.6 million a year, which is a lot more than some of the other key players are making. So yeah, I do think he's on that bubble, but that will depend on Spencer Anderson. But you'd want to trade Nate Herbig. You're not like you wouldn't be looking to just cut the bloke because the depth would be really good. Then again, I still, it's going to be interesting to see if he can get beat out by a couple of the blokes. So keep going down my list of things I want to talk about. Plumlee is another guy that I think is going to be really interesting in terms of battling with Kyle Allen for that spot, particularly if they are installing like slash packages with Fields. That's going to be actually helpful for Plumlee because you might be able to do some of those schemes with Plumlee as well. Because remember, a lot of people talking about him moving on to a wide receiver position. So that could be really helpful for the Steelers as well. Then there's this kid out of Georgia, Daijun Edwards. Now, he's a guy that I was thinking about a lot yesterday when I was seeing some photos at OTAs. There was a drill where I saw the clip where Najee and he were doing that. The big stick with the little pad thing on the end of it. I don't know what that's called. But they were doing a drill like that, and like Najee just pretty much like whacked him. And I had a good laugh, and because the caption was like Georgia-Alabama rivalry continues or something like that, and I was like, that's kind of cool. So I was thinking like, all right, well, this guy was a guy that when we did the react straight up the draft, like an hour, 30, 40 minutes later when the Steelers did their UDFA announcement. Why is that left the Steelers roster? They did the UDFA announcement and he was one of the guys. And I remember because I saw it within 2 minutes of going on Steelers.com. So immediately I went to record the video. And I remember as I was reading the stats, I'm like, this guy's actually like pretty decent in terms of what he's done at the collegiate level for Georgia. It's kind of funny he went undrafted. And Steelers have obviously done well with these undrafted blokes when we think about Jalen Warren and stuff. So I thought that like he'd be a cool guy for us to look at as well quickly because I don't know, like some fans will know a lot about him, others won't. So I thought let's pull him up. Let's have a quick look at him. So 4-year player at Georgia, behind a bunch of different other blokes. Averaged 5.3 rushing yards over the course of his career. Pretty steady in that too, 5.5 in 2022, 5.4 as you can see in 2023 on the screen right now for those that have got the screen up. He had 13 TDs last year for Georgia. He's had 24 overall. Had a bit of receiving yards as well, a couple hundred last year, 100 the year before that. Line in terms of yards from the line of scrimmage, 2,500 across 4 years, not too bad at Georgia. And you got 24 touchdowns overall. We always care about touchdowns on touchdown under. He had 881 yards last year. The attempts before that I mentioned with the 5.4, 5.5 average, but 769 yards in 2022. Nothing to sneeze at, really. Like, what's up? What's up, Toddy? There's really nothing to sneeze at there. Because let's have a look at Warren. Look at Jalen Warren College. This is Pro Football Reference's college site, which doesn't offer as many stats as they do for the pro players. But if we look at Jalen Warren, because I feel like this could be the Jalen Warren the second. You know, like this is Jalen Warren number 2. So Jalen Warren, 3 year, so 2 years Utah State, Oklahoma State. He had 2,000 yards. 2,477 yards from the line of scrimmage. He had 440 yards receiving, so about 100-ish difference. Jalen Warren had 19 TDs overall, and Jalen Warren averaged 5. So when we think about Daijun Edwards out of Georgia, we've got to think him as Jalen Warren the second. And last year I kept having to say, where there's a Warren, there's a way, because Warren found a way to win us games, with his running ability. So, you know what, I kind of like this. Let's look out for Daijun Edwards. I think he'd be an insider to make this because look at P. Ryan. I don't think he's going to necessarily make it. Shamklin, this guy's a camp body. Jonathan Ward, even though he's experienced, he'd be a really good running back to keep on the practice squad. Cordell Patterson's obviously there. So you've got Cordell Patterson. You obviously can have Jalen Warren. You can obviously have Najee Harris. Then you probably got that 4th spot. And Connor Hayward is going to be slotted in the fullback spot with all likelihood. So, yeah, my inside running is that you're going to see Dejan Edwards, be a really key player for the Steelers in terms of the backup guy, but at least a key player in the preseason. So that's going to be pretty cool. Jettle says, wonder if Patterson gets put on the roster. Yeah, that's kind of interesting. Like, see, I listed him as an RB running back, like both, but more as an RB so they can keep more wide receivers. Interesting take, or they just list him as a returner or something like that. But I mean, the Steelers can keep them like different guys if they want. So they can kind of do what they want to do. That's it. The wide receiver number 2 is already there. That's it. All right. Big sip of coffee to try and save me coughing. Going down the list, Deshaun Elliott was another guy I wanted to talk about. This guy, I love this guy when he came in. I love this press conference. He's respecting the logo. He's talking about hitting people. He's happy to be here. Like doing it all, man. Like he was awesome. Like, he's probably like, I won't say he's my favorite player we've acquired overall this offseason because I like the draft picks. But he's I think he's like my favorite. It's hard because I really like the Queen Edition. He's probably my favorite player that we acquired because I really wanted a strong safety. I really wanted a classic strong safety. The guy can play in the slot. The guy can play other safety positions outside the box as well. But this guy's going to be integral. Come mid-season, people are going to be like, thank freaking hell we've got Deshaun Elliott. So I'm really happy that we got him. Oh, hey, RB, it's been a while. How you doing? My source tells me there's a placement for Sutton. They are crossing the I's were legal, including. Do you mean Cam Sutton at corner? What do you mean Cortland Sutton at QB? Wide receiver. I think you're meaning cornerback, right, RB? Yeah, but I mean, Neal doesn't have that speed, man. Like Deshaun Elliott is like, he brutalized, man. A massive Deshaun Elliott dude, like this kid. So I'm glad that because I think NFL.com wrote an article and said the Steelers it was one of the top free agents that teams got that's been unheralded, or they even used a different word than unheralded, but that's what effectively what it meant. And they talked about him being a massive hitter, which he is. That crushing hit that he had on Patrick Mahomes. Talked a little bit about tight end to start the show. Really want to see Rodney Williams at mandatory minicamp and training camp. I want to see if he can crack the squad. Wide receiver turned tight end. Really good special teams player for them last year. Cool. Thanks, you boy. Yeah. So, cool. Checking for the suspend. Interesting state stuff. Yeah, I don't love it that they do need more experience in there. So, it is what it is. And if it could be cheap, it could be good. I'm not going to touch that, but that's, man, Jeddah, you're on one today. If you said it's push day, are you on the have some pre-workout or creatine? You're fired up, man. You're on fire. Interesting. So they've listed Isaiah Gathings, they've said they've acquired a tight end. Remember I said earlier on the show he's a wide receiver turned tight end. They haven't even listed him as a tight end yet on the roster. So that's an interesting thing. So that pretty much wraps up the stuff that I was thinking about talking about from the roster perspective. There's just some things, as I said, some of these things are bubbling up as I'm, as I'm looking through the OTA stuff. Oh, that's right. I did want to talk about the returner in Cordell Patterson. So I heard after OTA day 2, it was day 2 or day 3, Nick Farabor and Alan Saunders, I'm going to get wrong where they're from, but they were talking about, it's not all Steelers talk, it's, I'm meant to blank, Steelers Now. Anyway, they were talking about the fact that one of them, I think it was Farabor, was looking at the return game, or it was Ansel, was one of them was watching it, and they said it was really interesting because the Steelers actually lined up the guys to block the returner. They actually lined up all defensive ends and defensive linemen, and it was very exotic. But it also kind of makes sense with the new kickoff rules that actually they're the athletic guys that you want pushing, you're more athletic than the O-linemen. So it did sort of spark the idea that I think we're going to see some really exotic return formations and special teams formations this season. It could be pretty cool. Oh, nice. What are you doing? I always start with, I do Truss it. I mean, people call it pull down, press down, whatever, with the pulley, with the rope. I do rope at 3 sets, do something else, and then I go back and then I do rope with the bar. I love that. I don't do the overheads. I used to do the overhead stuff and it screwed my elbow. Anyway, you sidetrack. You know, I'm talking fitness. Your boy RB2 says, did you see Paintball say Darnell was really sharp? Yeah. Well, I like Scotty Miller. I don't think he's good for more than 30, 40 targets in the year. And I think we kind of got that with Austin and with Roman Wilson. So I would have liked to go like Renfro, but it's good to see those guys doing well. But Darnell has to be used in the receiving game because we didn't go and get a proven receiving tight end to back up Freemuth, and that is needed in the Arthur Smith offense. So I'm actually really glad what I'm seeing with Darnell. And I did see a clip during the week where he ran from behind the line of scrimmage on a route and did really, really well. And that could be super in terms of these, exotic schemes where they do put Justin Fields in. And we did talk about this on the Steelers Goal Perspective content that we recorded, which obviously one came out last night, my time, your morning, so today, but more are coming out over the weekend. But I did joke that you could have Darnell on one side, and you could even put a Fatanu, and then you'd have Dan Moore at left and Broderick at right. And that would be huge because particularly with the way that they pull, or you could even have Herbig snap the ball, and you actually could sit Frazier back there if you wanted to. Like, the Steelers have got some really cool options, but your overall point about Darnell being used is massive. What's up, Steelers freak? What's up? What's going on? I saw your comment on the video that I put out this morning. I will definitely respond to that, and I do owe you that email on that idea. Jedevil says, Steelers now does. Yeah, they do. I actually really respect Faraball. That's what I was actually saying to Shannon White off air. At risk of me alienating other Steelers people out there, I'm going to put it straight. So I find things like OTA reports and minicamp reports and rookie minicamp reports and training camp reports difficult to fully agree with or accept as a Steeler fan, because not everyone can evaluate sport and on-field play as well as they think they can. And I've heard people say things, and then I've watched like that film or tape, and I'm like, that's not what's there. And then I go and look at what other people are saying, like people that are more experienced than the people that have said the thing that I think is wrong, and they're agreeing with like what I might have said. Now, I'm not saying I'm perfect at it. I'm really not. But I don't trust. I guess my point is I don't trust a lot of evaluations. So that's what's been frustrating with OTAs is we're relying. It's very closed door. The media don't even get access to a lot of stuff. So, but my point is Farabor is someone I actually do trust, because a couple of years ago he was saying some things. I was like, and I kind of tested it. I go and find whatever I could that proved it or not, and he was quite on. Like, he was really on with a few things, and that showed up. So I'm a big fan of the work and he grinds. He works hard. He's really good. Howdy, Eric. Thank you for joining. As always, you're a massive fan of us and supporter of us. I love it. Your boy says, I agree, but I think the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys will make up the lack of a real 2. Exactly. And that's what I think as well, which is why I don't like the take out of Ray Fittipaldo that they're going to go after Debo and Ayuk. I don't know if you heard me when I was saying that one. You were saying that one earlier in the show, mate. Jiddle says, V-bar press downs. Oh, excellent. Yeah, I love rope pull downs. Yeah, weighted dips is good. Still getting back there after my shoulder issue, but yeah, nice. I like it. I know, it's funny. I got this tingling going on my bad shoulder now. I'm gonna go back to my physio. Not to tip my okay. I'm great at balance. You can't. Yeah, I think it's also sport. Like, you could see different athletes and what they do, and it was my thing last year. I talked about. No, it was the year before, back when I was still with Steel Curtain Network, when I was still behind Steel Curtain. We talked about Chad Muma, and people saying to me, "Oh, Chad Muma, the linebacker, he doesn't run as fast as this guy or that guy or Devin Lloyd," and both were drafted by Jaguars. And I said, "Yeah, their 440 is slower, but look at their height, right? And then look at their tape, their stride. They can get across the field plenty fast. Like, it doesn't matter. And in fact, when you're stuck behind, when you've got no line and D line going at each other and you're watching the play develop and the person spotting a hole, you'll get there plenty quick. Like the 40 time for linebackers, it can be very overrated. Like great if they can run below a 4.5, but a 4.55 is incredibly fast if you're 6'3" and above, and with your stride length, like you're going to get to the football. Still found enemy territory. Said Chris Carter said mid-season last year that at times Darnell was wide open. Yeah, that's true. But I also saw so he caught 7 of 10 balls, I think, thrown his way. Yeah, there are a couple there that I was like, man, one of those was like, you really should have caught that. And so from my perspective, I just want to see development there. But he's a rookie. The guy's got to develop. Still being amateur, she says, and if he's wide open, throw it to him too, because then at least someone would have to be dedicated to cover. That's it, 100%. 6'12", he's open. Well, that's the other thing, right? Like the pot shot that they could do with that is incredible. And then RB2 says, for sure, at this point, no one should be pressed into him by surprise athletically at this point. Yeah, 100%. I was 6'4", 200. Ooh, nice. 448, 40. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And the taller you are as well, you actually often struggle. I ran track. I'm just under 6'2". I ran track, and the taller you are, the harder it is to run your stride. It's why remember Usain Bolt when he won all those things, all those world champs, gold medals, and set all those world records. A lot of people thought he was on drugs because the taller you are, the harder it is for you to maximize your stride with speed, and it's more about your leg rotation, right? Because the taller you go, it becomes more complex than when you're more compact. And so it was quite interesting with Usain Bolt, because everyone said, 6'5", he's almost 6'5". He can't, he's got to be on drugs to be able to run that fast. And it's not. You literally, there's scientists from some of the best unis around the world literally looked at, mathematicians and physicists and stuff. They're like, yeah, and there was a really cool overlay picture they had where you look at his leg cycle, and even if he was half a second slower out of the blocks, behind blokes, by the time he got 60-70% across the distance, he was so far ahead of everyone just because of his stride, because he matched the amount of leg rotations. But I know it the other way because I ran long distance track, and my coach used to always be at me because he'd be like, and fair enough, he'd be like, you would get a much better time, but you run 70% of your stride, because I was really quite tight in the hips and I have tight hamstrings. So that was, it's more tight hamstrings than tight in the hips, got tight in the glutes. But yeah, so it is interesting. It always makes you look slower than what it is. It's like, I don't know how many people go out there skiing or snowboarding or any of those winter sports, but if you ever film that, when last time, a couple of years back when we went skiing, my wife filmed us skiing, and it looks so freaking slow, but it was pretty fast. I'm not the best skier, so I'm far out. That was really fast for me, and it looks slow as heck. But even she's a really good skier, and she looks slow as heck. So that's why you got to see some of that stuff live to really know. But yeah, the taller you are, the bigger you are, the slower you can look. Fuzzy says I ran a 4.28 once, but that's so good. That is so good. I can't. That's just the best. Cool. Well, Jer has been bugging me for a spin the wheel. So Jer, because of the crack ups that you've delivered so far, if you've got an idea for spin the wheel, I'll do a spin the wheel. We'll do a spin the wheel show later on as well. This is cool. Everyone throw in your athletic achievements. I love this. I could long jump. Ooh, how many is that? Because I used to do a bit of long jump. How many is that? 25. Wait. That's I get it. That's a good one, Toddy. I was like, 25. Wait, you doing 25 feet? Are you doing 25 inches? You crack me up, you guys. It's great. The worst one I ever did. My coach, I used to run 800, 1500, and 3K. So what's that? Like 1.5, more than 1.5 mile, whatever it is. Anyway, my coach made me once do 400-meter hurdles. That was bad time. I didn't enjoy that. Really didn't enjoy that at all. Or winter steeplechase where you run through the pool. Anyway, we're getting way sidetracked for some Steelers stuff. So I'll get back to a few Steelers things that I wanted to talk about. But yeah, so I said with the roster, it is a really interesting shape, but there's not 90 men. I think there's actually only 88 men on the roster right now. So that will be interesting. That's who I forgot to talk about. Is David Perales. Do you remember David Perales last year? He was a real like sort of camp and off-season darling. Steelers kept him around. 6'3", 255 pounds. You see there, out of Fresno State, really good player. I'd love to see him challenging too for a spot. And maybe they're feeling good about him with Herbig as the third, and maybe that's why we haven't really seen another outside guy come in. But between him and Jeremiah Moon, that guy's a beast. If people haven't caught that video we did on him a couple of weeks back, he's a beast, man. And he was a beast, and then he rocked up to OTAs, and he's looking really good. Really good. Eric says, I will pull up your comment and say, Eric, about the high school stuff. But last year's, I think Perales is better than Skipper. But yeah, I think between him and Moon, that's a battle that you want to have. That's awesome. Like, you know what I love? I feel like up until a couple of years ago, the linebacker depth was all over the place. And in the last sort of 18 months, far out, the Steelers have found a way to make that work. It's just awesome. I'm going to remove that for a sec. State champ, 200, 500. Far out. Because what's 500 meter in? Is that 650? Like hurdle? That's funny. 500 meters. Or maybe you meant 4. I've never seen a 500 meter hurdle race. You know what I found funny? Who was I telling? I was telling someone this recently. But we had an American high school come out and they did a comp against us. We did a big athletics tournament but with a bunch of Australian schools. We did some mixed races. That was cool. I ran in some mixed, like, and by mixed race, I mean like we mixed the different schools up. And we did a medley relay. And I ran the 8 in that. And I was the only Aussie in that race. It was really cool. And it passed the baton and stuff. It was fun. But we did the 1500. But because, and this is a really interesting fun fact. It's like, because Americans, you guys train it at the mile. Over the time, that's a big difference in the amount of training. And so we were all getting beaten in the straight because we'd kick and then we'd get done with our kick. Like all the US guys would kick 100 meters ahead of us because they were used to running the 1600, whereas obviously we ran longer distances than that anyway for training. But like they were just used to racing at 1600 and we were used to racing at 1500. So it absolutely, we all just got destroyed at the end. It was very funny. Not at the time, but I look back on it when I do laugh. Jedel says, if coach would have put me in the fourth quarter, he would have been okay. The quote. Yeah, stupid me. You meant 400. Okay, cool. I was like, yeah, 500. If I not known, I didn't know a race. I kind of love that. Any other Steelers questions before we close out the show? My throat's going to go in a sec, so I probably need to kind of wrap it up. But actually, I want to ask everyone here, because I've seen what's very divided, so I'm just going to ask the TDU community in the live chat. If Juju got released, would you want him back? Yay or nay, or yes or no? Cheap deal, like what they seem to be doing for Cam Sutton. Still, I would have been in the NFL. That sucks. Yeah, so I do think Rodney Williams. We need to see more of him to really know. And I'm hopeful we'll get to see more of him in the preseason. And I think he could be a really important player for them, but he's going to have to earn his way again via special teams. It's kind of hard because the Matt Canada offense was so all over the freaking place. And they have already talked about, Connor Hayward was talking about how they're all being used with the acquisition of Gavings. I think they were talking about him on the OTA blog on the Steelers website about Contend was saying the Steelers tight ends are being used in all different ways. It's really, really important. And Peyton Wilson might have said that as well. And so I do think Rodney Williams is going to be a key part of that, but he's going to have to prove it through special teams. Jettle says, if we sign Juju, cool. If not, yeah, I like that. Oh, Fuzzy, no. Best fullback in Steelers history. Jeez. That's a hard one because the fullback's used in many different ways. I can't pronounce the, you guys know, I mean, Chris S. I'm going to, yeah. Well, yeah, there you go. For Matu Ma'afa'ala. But that's probably not how the commentators would have pronounced it. Yeah, that's the thing. People talk about his knee. I don't know. But even when he was at Kansas City, he did better than what Allen Robinson did for us last year. So, oh yeah, man. I love Juju. I just want him on the sideline, man. Like just as like a pump up dude. I like that. Cool stuff. Well, any final questions? Otherwise, we will call it a show. Give my voice a rest. But yeah, we've got some more Steelers Global Perspective content coming out over the weekend. We've got linebackers, we've got quarterbacks, and so we've got tight end, fullback. And there's going to be some good stuff there. I reckon you're going to enjoy it. Some really funny things that Shannon was saying as well. So that is always good. Oh, by the way, Steelers fan Amy Terry, just so you know, your name, you're missing the T in territory, but you might be doing that strategically. I thought you should know because I've seen it. But yeah, we're going to wrap up with there. I hope you all, most of you are listening on your Friday night. Some of you, it is Australia, it is Saturday. You might be listening to this no matter where you are in the world on your Saturday or Sunday. I hope you're having an awesome weekend. Thank you for tuning in to Steelers Touchdown Under, for listening to us all. Me going on and on, but love Steelers football. Oh, and I've got to say this. I've read 100 days. I've got to fact check it because you never know you never know the accuracy of what you're reading on the internet today. 100 days to Steelers football. 99 days for me then. That's not a lot of time, but it's a good time. I like it. Jedevil says, always top tier content. Thanks, mate. Catch 46ers. Good luck with the workout. Hit that protein after, Jedevil. Peace out, everyone. Buzzy. Hope you enjoy being granddad and grandfather. And Pittsburgh Toddy, have a good one as well, mate. Still fan Amy Tori. I will see you in the emails and the comments. As always, go Steelers.